Hey, comic book fans, Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, and I am with my good friend Brian over there with his Transformers universe that he lives in. Brian, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, Pete.
Nice, nice. I wish I had a Transformers universe. I'm just in my bedroom with like my books and my wife's stuff. There's actually some Transformers if you can see all the way back there on my dresser. Can you see them back there?
I see some boxes. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. The few Transformers I actually have are up there. But anyway, we are not here to talk about Transformers. We are here to talk about the Amazon Prime show Paper Girls, which is based upon an Image comic written by one of our very favorite comic book writers, Brian K. Vaughn, and illustrated by Cliff Chiang. So, first off, Brian, you're a big fan of this comic, right?
Yes, I love this comic. I've been a fan of most things Brian K. Vaughan has written, especially his indie books, Why the Last Man, Saga, and this particularly. Also, huge fan of Cliff Chiang from his New 52 Wonder Woman run with Brian Azzarello.
Oh yes, that's a good
Love
pick.
his art too. So like when this book was announced, I'm like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yes, a match made in heaven. I think one thing we should bring up about Brian K. Vaughan is sometimes just having a writer's name on the book makes you want to read the book. It doesn't matter what the subject is. And for me, he's definitely one of them. I don't think he's ever written a book that I thought was lackluster. It's always been really interesting concept. He's very, very good at cliffhangers, don't you think?
Yes, and there are many cliffhangers in this comic series.
Yes. And so now I think we should point out how they're kind of different in a few ways, though. The show itself, in many ways, feels very faithfully adapted from the comic. However, I think that in terms of like the weirdness of the comic, they've definitely toned it down. It's very much like Umbrella Academy, which we just reviewed.
Yeah, although I think in this the Umbrella Academy weirdness was different. It was like
Okay.
a 1950s kind of pulpy weirdness, and this is like a normal kind of weirdness, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we one thing I should point out too is that we're just talking about episodes 1 through 4, so it's very possible that it gets all fucking bonkers in episodes 5 through 8. But right in the very first issue of the comic, I remember I have not reread it. I know you were talking about rereading it soon. I know that like when they run into the people that are involved in this time war, the people talk in a very strange way, and a lot of like really chaotic things happen. And there's this kind of feeling of what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And I think that like if someone's watching this show and hasn't read the comic, they probably are confused and are thinking like, what's going on? That's weird. They're in this time. But in the comic, it's like kind of more absurd. Like the way the people from the time war act and like what they do, what they look like. They're all like a hodgepodge of things from different eras of time, and I think it's
Yeah,
kind of
they
strange.
really emphasize that in the future things are very different than we would know them today. In the
Yes,
show, it just seems like, hey, we're from the future and we have some different clothes and some advanced technology, but that's kind of it.
yes, and we're kind of going out of the order of our talking points that I put down for today. But I was going to say that the villains in the comic are called the I wrote this down, the old timers,
Yes.
right? And the resistance fighting against them, it kind of gives off this feeling in the comic that it's like young rebellious kids against like old people, and it feels more almost like punk rock versus the establishment. Whereas in the show, it very much feels like, oh, it's like the one percenters, and they are holding on to all the resources via time travel, and there's a revolution to kind of get that from them. I feel like it's more a metaphor for our world than what they're doing in the comic. What do you think?
Which is certainly more relatable. And the comic, I believe the center of the conflict in the comic was whether or not you should be able to go back in time and change the past or not.
Yeah,
And it doesn't quite feel like that is going to be the case here, but I mean, it's possible they could still rope that in.
yeah. I had a question too because I know that the bad guy in the show that they've shown so far, uh, what the hell is her name? Prioress is her name, I
Prioris,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know she's in the comic, but I could have sworn that they started off showing Grandfather, who I think Jason Mazzuccas plays him.
Grandfather doesn't come in until later. There is a male character
Okay.
that I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
Um, man, yeah, I'd have to go look up his name, but I believe that the initial antagonist was an adult black male from the old timers faction.
Okay. Okay. I knew it was a man, and I was like, okay, maybe they switched it around. I think the actress that plays Prioris is pretty great, and there's definitely giving off that sort of like that Terminator vibe where she's just cold and calculated. All these innocent people that are in the present day, they have no idea they're dealing with this like sort of time traveling assassin. But I feel like in the comics, they just like straight up killed people that got in their way, and this it seems like they just erased their memories.
Yeah, although I think she has killed a few people too.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. But it's funny that like we've been talking about the show, and I haven't even mentioned the actual paper girls themselves.
Yes, we should do that.
Yeah. So first off, I think this show is excellently cast. Would you agree?
100%. Everyone looks exactly like and acts exactly like I would expect them to. Perfectly cast. I could not imagine anything being better.
Right, right. I do think that Mac doesn't exactly look like Mac from the comic because I think she has like red hair and it's in a ponytail. But otherwise,
that's her haircut. That's her exact haircut. Yes, her hair is more red in the comics. Totally forgivable though, because the hairstyle is like dead on.
Oh, for real? Okay, okay, yeah. I remember when the show first started in that first episode, I was like, "Damn, this is just like the comic."
Yeah,
yeah. And the four girls, like, they kind of have their own story arcs in the comic, and there's 30 issues altogether. It started in 2015. It ran all the way up to issue 30 in 2019. So a lot of shit happens. Do you know if there's going to be more seasons, or is it just a one and done?
It hasn't been announced yet. I imagine that there could be more. There should be more than one. I don't know how it's been received so far yet. I've seen some people say it's great. I've seen some people say it's a lackluster adaptation. So I want to reserve my judgment overall until we've seen the entire season.
Yeah.
But so far, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to see more of the weird stuff in the coming in the remaining episodes, because so far they're still kind of, the first episode is almost completely within the 80s and not that much weird stuff happens.
Right.
And then, you get a little bit more each time, but they're definitely taking a more grounded approach to kids time traveling than the comic, I think, so far. But they definitely got some weird stuff in there too, because there's a giant robot in
yeah. I totally forgot about the giant robot, which is so ironic considering who we are. Like I was like, oh shit, there's a mech, But I think that with the casting, they are still doing the plot lines that are in the book. Like it seems like all the kids kind of have their issues that they have to face in the comic. And with this show, is there one girl in particular whose story arc you're finding the most enjoyable or you want to see more of?
Well, I think they've given us a lot of Aaron and Mac so far.
Right.
Not as much with Tiffany and KJ. In the comics, I remember liking KJ a lot. Like just for some of the actions she has to take and all that. And I'm curious to see where they go there. So I don't believe they all meet future versions of themselves. I think it's just Aaron and Tiff do.
Right.
The whole aspect of Mac meeting her brother, that's completely fabricated for the show, I believe.
Yes.
And it is pretty great though. Like their interactions are great. Just someone dealing with that is it feels pretty interesting, and they made it. They did it in such an interesting way where he's this, like, the brother's like this adult, but he can still act like this jerk kid that he kind of was too when he was younger.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that kind of captures something I think that is very unique to Brian K. Vaughan. Brian K. Vaughan can write these stories and have these crazy concepts in them, but somehow he makes it to where it feels like it's your own personal life. Like you're like, oh man, I know that exact feeling this character's feeling. The way that character reacts is how I would react. It feels very intimate, all of his storytelling, even though like Saga is a great example where like it's this Star Wars type like epic thing, but yet it feels like it could be my life, it could be your life, you know.
Yeah, a lot of the drama and the elements of that story is just based on family and family dynamics and all that.
Right. Yeah. And the characters are always flawed. Like he doesn't have these like amazing heroes that are flawless or these like super genius characters. A lot of characters aren't that smart. They just like normal people that make mistakes. Some of them have like true issues. And this book, just right off the bat, when you read the comic, they're just super likable characters, and each girl kind of has her own issue that she has to face. And you're absolutely right that we've seen a lot of Mac and Aaron so far. I think the reason why I went off on this whole big tangent here is because Mac's storyline is so interesting in the comic and in the show. The idea that you go to the future and you find out you're gonna die within a few years, and everyone else has gone on to live longer lives, but you yourself are gonna die. And like, what does that do to you? And we see how she acts. But then what I liked about the show is exactly what you just mentioned, which is like she interacts with her brother, who at first doesn't believe that that's actually his sister, and then it's like, oh my god, this is my dead sister. And it's just like, it put me right in his shoes. It was just like, wow, what would that be like to run into my young sibling that died at a young age? I think it's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if a 12-year-old Brian just showed up at your doorstep right now while you're recording a podcast and you interacted with him, what do you think that would feel like?
Well, I think it'd be pretty amazing, all this shit. Like, wait till you play all the new Final Fantasy games. They go up to 16.
Oh my god! What number was it up to when you were 12?
When I was 12?
Yeah,
like 6.
Oh my god, that's fucking awesome. Oh no, then you'd say to him too? You'd be like, well, the X-Men, they have comic book movies now. And then you'd be like, the X-Men, though, they haven't actually made a big X-Men movie in a while. But that's because the biggest superheroes are Iron Man and Captain America. Like, they just right?
Yeah. Blow my little 12-year-old mind.
Yeah. They'd be like, oh, has there ever been a movie with like Transformers and real people? Yeah, about 6 of them. Yeah. It's great.
Of various qualities.
Yeah. Like, diminishing returns. Yeah,
very highly diminishing returns.
Yeah. So you like the interaction with the brother and Mac?
Yes, absolutely. I really like that one of his things too is like, I want to cure you. I want to help you get better, so you don't die in a couple of years. And I think that's that adds some extra stakes into what she has to do to. The choices she has to make. Does she stay? Does she go home? Does she just go off and, on her own, whatever? But it definitely raises the stakes for the character.
Yeah. And he even like offers to adopt her by the 4th episode.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because then he has daughters of his own. And one part I really thought was so cool was that the one daughter thought that Mac had stolen her jacket, or the dad had given her jacket, but in reality it's like that's the jacket that he gave to the daughter because it's from his sister.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Wow. She has this one line where she's like, oh, she like stole my jacket or something like that, but it's like he obviously gave that to her like in memory of his sister.
Yeah, wow.
I think that's cool. Yeah. It's so funny that they go to Chili's at one point. There's a little product placement for Chili's. That didn't look like any fucking Chili's I've ever seen, though. It looked kind of fancy.
No, the inside did not look like a Chili's.
No. This show takes place in Cleveland, right? Like just like a comic?
So,
yeah. I've never been to Cleveland. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, so Mac and her brother, that's great stuff. What do you think about Erin and her older self?
I mean, talk about an existential crisis. You know, you meet your future self, and then there's not what you thought you'd be. You have all this ambition, and you find out that you don't have a relationship with your sister. You haven't really accomplished anything. It seems like this more that adult Aaron isn't letting anybody else know yet as well. So I'm curious to see what that'll be. I don't remember her being in the comic that much.
Right.
I do agree with your assessment that they got Ali Wong to play adult Erin, and she's a big name, and they should absolutely use her, and she's great so far. But I'm not sure how much she'll stick around.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because like they frame it in such a way, like the very, very first episode of the show is Ali Wong as adult Erin, and like she hears this crazy noise, and then she sees the paper girls. So it's already kind of establishing her as a major character right away. Whereas in the comics, we're with the 12-year-old girls for a while before we see her, and she's just sort of a supporting character in the comic, kind of helping them adjust to modern day. Whereas in this show, she's like a big part of the show. And I think it's just because of her name, like you said,
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I think she's doing a really great job. And that's part of that intimate kind of feeling. Like she feels very realistic as a character. And like what she's talking about, like selling her mom's house, having this issue with her sister, like that just feels like real life stuff, even though there's all this crazy time travel insanity going on too.
Yeah.
So, we should probably talk about the behind the scenes stuff because we always talk about this with our shows. But you saw my notes that like Stephanie Folsom was the main person they tasked with like adapting this show.
Yes, and she's had some credits of some things we know.
Yes.
What did you write here?
Toy Story 4,
yes.
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok. Yep.
And then she also, the thing that intrigued me the most is that she wrote a screenplay that was on the Blacklist. Are you familiar with like how the Blacklist works?
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of scripts that are kind of like hot properties that may or may not get adapted, but people may be bidding over them.
Yeah, and hers was 1969: A Space Odyssey, or How Kubrick Learned to Stop Worrying and Land on the Moon. And that's about like the Kubrick, conspiracy of Kubrick faking the moon landing. And I thought that was a really interesting idea for a movie. I think that's a good person to tap to write the show, but apparently she's left the show.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't see that you wrote that, but interesting. Okay.
Yeah, she left the show in 2021, and so I don't know who's like the official showrunner. I did see Christopher Cantwell's name on there, and he was like one of the creators and producers of the show *Halt and Catch Fire* that's on AMC. Have you ever watched that show?
I haven't. I've watched maybe an episode or two randomly, but I didn't really follow it too well.
Yeah. He was very, very active and present on Twitter for a while, and I haven't seen him in a while. But he kind of went over to Marvel, and I know that he worked on like a Doctor Doom comic, and then he was on Iron Man for a while too. So he's got the comic book roots,
That's good. It's always good.
Yeah. So let's see what else do I got on here. So one other character that's in the show is this guy Larry, and in the comics, isn't it like a woman that has like kind of hipster glasses or like 1950s glasses?
She's like a Sunday comics strip artist. I think it's Charlotte, but she appears. She's the first person they run into, I think, when they time travel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and and she's definitely the inspiration for the Larry role in this show so far. I'm kind of curious why they changed that role, and also I'm very curious about the subplot with his wife not having her memory erased.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound familiar to me either from the comics.
No, yeah, that's definitely an addition. Doesn't that actor kind of give you the vibe of Vanya's boyfriend, who was also like an original character in the first season of Umbrella Academy?
I honestly don't barely remember the first season.
Yeah,
I did
just. I did just watch that like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I kind of got the same vibe, and I even thought it was maybe even the same actor, but I don't think it is.
No,
but
so wait, are you implying that you think he might be up to something?
No, he just kind of comes off as a little bit sinister, but I think it's just because he's part of this resistance and he kind of has to be extreme because of what he's dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, he does kind of lock everybody in the basement overnight and hold
Yeah.
them first. So
yeah, and he like
and,
tases.
He chloroforms adult Aaron.
He tases her.
Taser, okay.
Yeah. That's pretty shifty. He just kind of reminds me of like Cassian Andor from like Rogue One, where it's like you have to be kind of extreme because you're dealing with this evil empire. You know? Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. He'll probably get killed, I think, in the next couple of episodes.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up Umbrella Academy because I do feel like there is this trend. I feel like we just watched Umbrella Academy. In the Umbrella Academy, they have the Commission, which like deals with time anomalies and trying to keep people from disturbing the timeline. Then in Loki, which we also reviewed for this channel, you have the TVA, and they're trying to get rid of variants and disruptions to the timeline too. And now in this, you have the old Watch. So, I mean, do you feel like, I mean, I understand that all of these are based on comics. Do you feel like there's something that kind of inspires this type of storytelling? Like something about our world that we live in, or maybe a particular story that inspires all of these stories?
I don't know. I know you were implying that it seems that they've gone in this direction, post Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of this comic predates that movie, so
Right.
maybe this is the comic that originates the idea or the trend.
Yes. I think like if you are going in a chronological order of all this stuff, you're right. The comic does predate Avengers Endgame, and then Loki is a kind of an inspired choice for a story, right? Because it's not like adapting directly from a Loki comic book, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, really establishing the idea of the multiverse, which is this whole saga that we're in now for phase 4 and 5 and 6. I think that like, there's always been like the Men in Black kind of like trying to keep the status quo in place, and maybe like time travel is just the next evolution of it. But I do, however, feel like we've all kind of seen the memes and the gifs and the just people tweeting about how we're in the wrong timeline. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, and they often like, don't they quote like Community and they say we're in the dark?
It's the darkest timeline. Yeah. There was a great episode of Community where called Remedial Chaos Theory, where everyone's at one character's apartment and they roll a die to see who answers the doorbell to go downstairs to get the pizza. And they show you a view of each different character going to get it and what happens in the room when that character leaves.
Right.
So, and the darkest timeline was like somebody gets shot, somebody dies, the whole room gets set on fire. Like everything was like horrible.
Yeah. That's when what's his face, the Childish Gambino guy. What's that guy's name? That's when he goes, right?
Yeah. So that's when Troy left the room to get the pizza. Is when the worst stuff happened.
Yeah, I think that might be like a subconscious thing that keeps making these major storylines come up, where it's the idea of like, because like the Commission is in the Umbrella Academy comic, but it's not as central as it is in the show, right? And the TVA, like I said, is like kind of really focused on in this Loki comic because of the direction they're choosing to go with the MCU. And all of this stuff is kind of post 2016, which is when a lot of people were saying we're in the darkest timeline. And it might just be like a subconscious thing where people think that the system is falling apart and they think that there should be someone trying to keep the system in order, but they're not doing their job. That's kind of where I feel like this stuff is coming from.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I might just be pulling shit out of my ass because I'm a weirdo. But, it's when we cover Loki, then we cover Umbrella Academy, then we cover this. It's like, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah, you definitely have a point. A lot of people would say today is very messed up and lots of things wrong in the world. You could argue more so or less so than in the past. You never know. But I mean, everybody always wants something better or some things to work. So everybody has a different interpretation of that.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other notes that I had about the characters. Did you have anything else you want to say about the first 4 episodes?
Yeah, I guess just want to comment. I think we did mention it briefly, but the casting of Jason Mantzoukas as grandfather is
Oh yes,
pretty inspired. It looks spot on,
yes,
and although maybe introduced a little early, I think.
yeah,
I'm very curious to see where the show goes. The show goes to some weird places, goes to some dark places. They haven't given me any indication that they will go to do those kind of things in the show. Um,
yeah,
and I'm just curious to see how long it can go on. I mean, there are only 30 episodes of the comic, and that's it. It's done. It's a complete story. Um, they've already been coming up with their own storylines to add in there to pad it out potentially. So I'm wondering if this is a one and done, if this is a 2 or 3 or not. The all the streaming shows are kind of like coming into the spotlight here based on all the rumors with HBO to me. So I'm kind of wondering like what is the future with all these streaming shows and we're getting all these comic adaptations. So
yeah. I was wondering because I wanted to kind of maybe riff on that. You know, you and I have been kind of talking about this via Messenger. Did you want to talk about the HBO thing now since we're kind of early for?
yeah, I think we covered most of what we can for the show, and we'll finish the rest off next week.
Yeah, if you guys enjoyed what we said about Paper Girls, make sure you're here next week too. I know we're recording this a little early, Brian, but it's going to be our usual 9:15 time. We'll be here next Wednesday at 9:15 to finish episodes 5 through 8 of Paper Girls. But so then the big news for like today and yesterday has been that Batgirl, a movie that cost $90 million and is fully made, they are just scrapping. HBO is, I mean, not HBO, Warner Brothers is scrapping, and everyone is just talking about that.
Yeah,
and like,
it's not. It's fully filmed and was in
Yeah.
post production, so it's not completely finished, but it's like most of the way there. And
Okay.
so it's just the general thought of the public is, you spent most of the 90 million already. Like, why not just finish it off here? I mean, especially considering you threw 20 million at Zack Snyder to finish the Snyder cut.
I know.
4 bots.
Yeah. It's so chaotic, at least the way that it seems. Like, it seems like Warner Brothers never really has a plan, and that they're just always reacting. And everyone always says, they don't have like their own Kevin Feige to kind of direct things. I don't know what is going on over there. I've heard some crazy rumors, and I want to hear if maybe you had heard of them too. One of the rumors I heard was that HBO Max is just going to be a tab on the Discovery app, and that all of HBO Max's like scripted shows are going to get cut. Have you heard that?
Some form of that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just go through all the stuff that's happened since the Warner Brothers and Discovery mergers happened.
Sure.
It's long been rumored that the CW was going to be selling off that branch of its production, and Warner Brothers was going to cut ties. We're currently right now seeing the Flash TV show is going to end next year with like a half-sized final season, and which is essentially the end of the Arrowverse because all the other shows are already canceled. So basically, the scripted shows there are kind of gone. We're hearing that, this movie was canceled. There are a ton of originally scripted shows on this network here that have been up in the air. A lot of them we reviewed on the show. Young Justice is on the block potentially here. Doom Patrol. I mean, maybe even Peacemaker for all we know. I think that was a pretty critically acclaimed show and pretty well received, but I don't know how much money it generated for the service necessarily. Yeah. So, I mean, it looks like they're gonna just combine Discovery Plus and HBO into whatever amalgamation they have there, and it's just the scripted shows are just gonna kind of go away, and they're gonna focus on just creating like more blockbuster sized movies.
Yeah. So we've already seen the effects of that. Do you remember? You saw the Batman in the theaters, right?
Yes.
Do you remember that commercial they played with the DC movies right before the movie started?
Yeah.
So in that commercial, they showed like things that were supposed to be coming out in 2022. They had said that back then. It was like, well, we're going to see the Flash, and we're going to see Aquaman, and we're going to see Shazam and Black Adam. And now for 2022, we're just getting Black Adam and Shazam.
Oh,
and
that reminds
what's
me.
that?
The I think the mediocre offering of WB at San Diego Comic-Con is also ties in here too. You know, we were kind of wondering how they could get away with only showing 2 movies, and this kind of sounds like why.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I don't know what they're trying to go for with Shazam. Like, I understand that, like, that movie was sort of it was a hit. It wasn't like this big blockbuster thing, but like what they're planning to do, like they have like Helen Mirren and I think like what's her face, you know, who's the actress from like Desperado and you know, why can't I think of Salma Hayek, right? They're like the 2 main villains in that movie.
Selma Hayek's in it?
Isn't it Salma Hayek and Helen Mirren?
I thought it was Helen Mirren and a younger actress, whose name I can't remember.
Oh, I'm bad. Okay. Oh man, I'm gonna get canceled now. But I thought it was the 2 of them as like goddesses, and I actually love Helen Mirren, and if it is Salma Hayek, I love her too. But I just feel like that's not what these audiences are looking for. You know, they want to see like. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting about the Shazam movie is that it looks to be kind of like an original story, almost like what they did with like Hellboy originally. You know, like Golden Army is completely original from the comics.
Yeah.
So I believe it's Helen Mirren and that's who is the other one? Oh, is it Lucy Liu?
Oh my god! Where the fuck do I get? I mean, maybe because of like Eternals. It is Lucy Liu. It is.
So
Lucy Liu.
I believe they're playing. Is it maybe the daughters of Atlas?
Something like that. Yes.
And they're kind of like, well, why didn't we inherit Atlas's power, and why do these kids get it? I guess.
Yeah.
So I mean, I in terms of this, I mean, the first Shazam was based on a much more recent version of that comic. I would say it's from like 2014 or 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's that many like famous, really well regarded Shazam stories that that are like legendary amongst comic fans. So it makes sense to me that this is a property where they would kind of like flex their muscle because there probably aren't that many hardcore Shazam fans out there, or enough of them to get a decent box office draw.
That's a really good point. I actually follow a guy on Twitter who's like his whole thing is that he loves Shazam, but that's one guy. I follow another guy too whose whole thing is Hawkman, and both those guys, they're gonna have a good year this year. But I just look at that and like it looks like a movie that I would enjoy, and I like the idea of having these 2 daughters like be like, how come we're not getting this power? How come it's going to the mortals? I like that idea. I just feel like it's like kind of counterintuitive to what Warner Brothers seems to always be pushing. They're kind of pushing this sort of masculine, dark vibe, but the thing is, they go back and forth. It's
that was the prior regime with Zack Snyder. I think they want to move away from that.
Okay, but and see, I agree with that, right? But then it's like Birds of Prey comes out, and they just fucking just bury that in the dirt. I don't understand.
Birds of Prey was pretty good.
I loved Birds of Prey. I thought it was great. But it's like they didn't give it a chance to succeed. I think the marketing was kind of bad, and like it just didn't get that push, and it just did poorly at the box office.
Yeah.
What's her face? Ali Wong is in Birds of Prey too.
Who is she in Birds of Prey?
She is Montoya's girlfriend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But anyway, it just seems like they kind of keep ping-ponging back and forth. And maybe the movies moving forward are all going to be kind of more colorful and fun. Like, obviously, Wonder Woman 1984 was more like an 80s kind of fun vibe. And then Aquaman was silly and epic and over the top and colorful. Birds of Prey was colorful and stuff like that. but then this Black Adam looks more like serious, gruff, you know.
Yeah, but there's some comedy injected in there, I think. With the when the guy hits the rock in the face and the crowbar bends and he throws him into the ocean. There's going to be some humor in there too, but I mean the character is an anti-hero. I don't think there really is much levity to be had there in terms of humor,
Yeah, and I guess like as far as like colorful, fun comic book stuff, you do have the JSA, you have Doctor Fate, and you know, So yeah, it's just with tone and stuff, it just keeps going back and forth, and they have these two movies. I just feel like, why are they banking on these two movies for this year? Why aren't they going for the movie that has Michael Keaton's Batman? Like why isn't that coming out this year?
I guess, I mean, I'm assuming those movies are the blockbuster scale that they want.
Yeah.
They probably had a larger budget. I don't know the budgets of those movies, but I imagine they're more.
Okay.
I do know that Batgirl had a $90 million budget, and that is a pretty modest budget. So
yeah.
I think what they want to do here is they want to make big movies that make a big splash at the box office, draw a lot of eyes, and they don't want to keep putting out things that may be potentially mediocre or highly criticized and then flop at the box office. So they want to push hard and and swing for the fences.
Yeah.
And really, this is what they're up against here is they've had a number of flops with DC, and they're in the ballpark, always being compared with Marvel, who basically has hit a home run every time in terms of box office. Like none of their movies have not made a profit or a significant profit,
right?
Many of the DC ones haven't.
Yeah. Even like, and I guess like the biggest swing and a miss is Justice League, right? Which that movie should have been bigger than Avengers, but it,
Yeah, like if talking about 12-year-old Brian or 12-year-old Pete, if you had the opportunity to say, hey, do you want to see an Avengers movie or a Justice League movie? What would you have picked at 12 years old? Justice League, hands down.
Yes.
I mean, maybe the only thing I might have picked over that would have been like X-Men,
Right.
But yeah.
So then one other thing that we should bring up. Okay, so if they're going for this blockbuster thing, we know that The Flash is happening, but I think that maybe the reason why it's not in the public eye as much is because the lead actor just has so much controversy. Like someone posted, I shared this tweet with you where it was like showing a mugshot of Ezra Miller in one picture, and then next to it was like the actress that plays Batgirl, like in a costume with a kid at a hospital or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, one of these is getting a movie that's coming out. And I think like someone even tweeted saying like, isn't Ezra Miller on the run from the police right now?
Oh God.
Yes. So it's just like
now.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like they have Michael Keaton's Batman in that movie, but yet it's like, wrapped up in this controversial Barry Allen. I don't know what the fuck they're gonna do with
Brendan Fraser. I want more of the Renaissance.
Okay, so that's the Batgirl.
It's going to end because, they already killed Batgirl. They're probably going to kill Doom Patrol. It's over.
That sucks. I do know that Brendan Fraser does have some kind of like horror movie or something else coming out soon called The Whale.
Well, yeah, I don't know how horror it is, but because I think it's about like a guy who was like 600 pounds and he's trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter, I believe.
Oh, probably the reason why I said it's a horror movie because that's my future and I'm scared of it. No, I probably just think everything's fucking horror because I'm always watching horror and stuff for my other channel, The Lastercast. But no, you're right. I mean, that sucks. If we didn't get Doom Patrol anymore because of this, that blows. He was going to be it's Firefly, right? Not Firebug.
Firefly, yeah.
So he was going to be Firefly in that Batgirl movie.
Yes.
Yeah. But okay, so here's my question. I mean, I know we're all over the place because this is sort of an impromptu discussion, but like, was that Batgirl supposed to be Barbara Gordon in the Michael Keaton universe?
Nobody really knows. I think because the Commissioner Gordon in this franchise was going to be J.K. Simmons,
Right.
And he was the Commissioner Gordon in the Snyder movies, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he
But
was.
I don't necessarily even think that these were connected there. So I don't even know how it even makes sense that Michael Keaton was the Batman here. So this must have been something totally separate.
Yeah, from what I'd heard of their plan, when there seemed to be a plan, it was that Batgirl and Supergirl were going to take the forefront, and they were going to try to make another Justice League eventually, but you were going to have Supergirl that's in this Flash movie and Batgirl be the main people, and that like Michael Keaton's Batman was going to be a mentor to them, and like there was going to be like a Flashpoint kind of reboot that was going to like reset things, but I think that like the Michael Keaton Batman, we were going to see him in his own timeline in that Flash movie.
Did they ever confirm that Michael Keaton was going to be playing Bruce Wayne?
Oh, I mean, I think so. Yeah, didn't they have pictures of him on set and stuff as Bruce Wayne?
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is, you think Flashpoint, the first Batman you think of is Thomas Wayne. Obviously, he's an older guy. I was always curious about that, but I don't remember if they ever confirmed that he was definitely playing Bruce still.
Oh my god, dude! If you told me that's what their plan was, that would be Thomas Wayne right now. I'm sitting on my bedroom floor. I would just pull down my pants and take a shit right now, just like on my floor. You're having fucking Michael Keaton play Thomas Wayne instead of Bruce Wayne. Nah, fuck that. And you have Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Thomas Wayne. That would have been a perfect Flashpoint.
Yeah, that would have been pretty great.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so here's kind of like one last kind of point to bring up. We're sitting here. We're obviously talking about these choices that we don't understand that Warner Brothers has made, and it's like ultimately we can't really do anything, right? We just all we do is just review these things. So it's like we just have to kind of hope and pray that someone starts to make choices. I guess my last question to you is, do you think Warner Brothers, after a restructuring, has the potential to eventually get this comic book franchise on track?
Honestly, I think they need to just cut their losses, stop everything, and start again in a couple of years from scratch. Maybe you build off the Batman, maybe you keep one aspect of something, but they're just everything is just tainted, and these kind of actions, like right now, like cutting some things and keeping others, just put a bad taste in people's mouth. Doesn't give them any sense of credibility, and why get invested in the hype of these movies if they're just going to potentially cancel them? And I'll tell you right now, like if this HBO Max alleged gutting happens, I am dropping HBO Max in a heartbeat. Like there's that's the stuff that keeps me on HBO Max.
Yeah.
And as much as I love John Oliver, as much as I love John Oliver, that alone is not gonna keep me on HBO.
Yeah. I understand. I even saw something today that was saying that they were just going to remove shows that are on there no matter what because of tax returns that they could get or whatever, or tax incentives. And I'm worried that like they might pull a show like Big Love, which as a show that was on HBO years ago. My wife and I are just kind of going through it slowly. And, that's one of the benefits of having HBO Max. Like one of the things about HBO Max, like I told you this in a message, like 70% of, I think, what I watch is on HBO Max. And it's like the stuff I watch for our shows and then the stuff I watch with Sherry. And if they were to like gut a lot of the stuff, man, that would just kind of even fuck up my lifestyle a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I end up watching more things on HBO Max than I think. But
right,
this whole gutting happens, like it kind of puts the whole picture of streaming and big tentpole streaming shows in question.
Yes.
I think people have been saying that Netflix is on a down slope for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are they going to do after Stranger Things 5's done? If they're losing subscribers now, like, what happens then? And all these other services, like, the Marvel and Star Wars shows, that they have their moments here and there, but are any of them really, really worth paying what was it, $7 a month or $8 a month for that service?
Yeah.
I don't know. Nothing's earth shattering. I mean, and you know, Amazon, which I kind of view as more of a bonus to just having Amazon Prime. You know, they have some great stuff there. Obviously, you know, we're talking about Paper Girls. We both really like it. The Boys is fantastic. Invincible is fantastic. Some people like the Wheel of Time stuff. There's a lot of potential here with the Ring of Power show, which I think starts really soon if it hasn't already.
Yeah.
But you know, that's it's still a newer kind of burgeoning streaming service in terms of television production.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, really, really good point. And also that showrunner woman that I mentioned before that was working on Paper Girls, she's actually written episodes for that Ring of Power show too, that the Lord of the Rings show too. That's a little side thing. But really, really excellent point that you make. HBO itself, before any of this streaming shit happened, was sort of like the standard for like premiere television. And I know that like AMC, what's that?
I was saying true, yeah.
And like AMC kind of started to rise in power with like Breaking Bad and Mad Men and other shows too. And they've kind of been like the main standard. And you know, every so often you'll get these really excellent streaming shows on any of these different platforms. But I think the really good point you make there is about the Star Wars and the Marvel stuff, because that's what they hook us on. But that stuff is all I would always watch a Peacemaker over any one of those fucking Disney Plus shows.
I mean, maybe that's the mentality that's kind of what the mentality of WWE is going for. They want to make the big, really good things,
yeah,
and not worry about these middling things here. So, I mean, to me, Peacemaker's a really good big thing, but I hope someone sees that like that and keeps that at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my fear here, is that everything we watch on that show is going to be gone. I have some maybe middling hope that Peacemaker sticks around. Yeah. Maybe. But like they're not gonna. I fear for Young Justice. I'm almost guaranteeing that Doom Patrol and Titans are done. Like I'm almost guaranteeing it.
That's so depressing. Yeah, and because I really enjoy talking about that stuff with you too, and it's just So it's crazy because that's just what my feed has been like the last 2 days. Just been like HBO and Warner Brothers and what's going on over there. I guess we'll see. And, maybe by the time of our next episode, we'll have even more announcements. But I'm kind of feeling the news is not going to be good.
No.
Cool, man. All right. Well, as usual, I had fun talking to you. If you guys have not subscribed to our channel yet, please do. Brian and I do this every single week where we talk about your favorite kind of streaming shows that are still not canceled. And we also talk about movies, too. But we will be here next Wednesday, once again, to talk about Paper Girls at 9:15 Central Time.